former discrimination in English cricket. Now, Morgan was responding to the racism row that has engulfed county cricket side Yorkshire this week.
Probably more so the last 2 to 3 years. Our culture has been built around inclusivity and diversity. And it's actually been quite a strong part of our game. And for that period of time in particular, we've been active about talking and actioning things that show meaningful change. And we're very serious about it. And we firmly believe that there is no place in our sport for any type of discrimination. And I think, the actions of the ECB board to Yorkshire have indicated how serious they are about dealing with issues like this, and obviously resulting in their actions. Because obviously actions speak louder than words. They have been taken in a serious manner. Now, from our point of view as a team, we can only do so much in role modelling what we believe is right, because yes, we talk about it, but equally we want to do things that make a difference. And I believe that we've made huge strides forward as a group in doing that in various parts of our game. And we've found things that are not only pushing things forward or taking the cap forward, but also feel very authentic to individuals and where they've come from and the journeys that they've been.
All right, just to talk a bit more about tomorrow's match, I am joined by independent cricket writer Stuart Hess. Stuart, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Obviously, a must-win match for the Proteas tomorrow. What do you think South Africa needs to do to make sure that they beat England tomorrow?
I think they almost need to be perfect, actually. England have been the best team at this tournament. Pakistan very close to them. But, England have got so much depth and variety with the ball, a lot of depth with the ball, a lot of depth with the bat. Probably the best batsman at the tournament so far in Josh Butler. And South Africa, in order to beat them, are just going to have to be as close to perfect as they can be. The top order needs to perform well. They're going to need to finish well in the middle overs with a bat. And then, Anir Nortje, Kagiso Rabada and Tadrey Shamsi are the three main bowlers. They're going to have to be as close to their best as they can be tomorrow, because I don't think South Africa can afford any mistakes. If you're going to beat England, you need to be just about perfect.
Yeah. I mean, just personally, looking at South Africa's campaign thus far in the World Cup, do you think they have what it takes to be almost perfect tomorrow?
I think they do. The one issue I think is the batting is obviously the weaker part of South Africa's side. They're too top heavy, too many guys who are openers or number 3 batsmen, but they're going to have to adapt. They've called on their batsmen throughout this period of the last 10 months to adapt, to different roles. We've seen it with Aiden Markram. We've seen it with Themba Bavuma, who's normally an opener, but is batted at number 4 at times during this tournament. Everybody needs to adapt, and whatever role they get into tomorrow, they're just going to have to perform it as best that they can. Because, look, England has got very few weaknesses. They're very well led by Owen Morgan, and in order to beat them, everybody has to perform at their best. They can ill afford to make any mistakes tomorrow.
I mean, you mentioned Aiden Markram and also Themba just leading from the front there on the field. Any worries, though, with Quinton de Kock not bringing in those runs that we would have expected him to?
Oh, that's a huge concern. Quinton de Kock has been the primary batsman for South Africa throughout the year. He led them to that series triumph. His runs led them to the series triumph in the West Indies. His runs again against Sri Lanka was important in winning that series. He has been the mainstay of the South African T20 side. Now, it's a credit to the Proteas in one sense that they've managed to get to this point where they're on the verge of a semi-final spot without him contributing with the bat. But in order to beat a side like England, your best players need to stand up. And, it's time that Quinton de Kock did that.
I mean, let's just talk a bit more about the pitch and the conditions. The last time the Proteas played in Sharjah was against Sri Lanka. And, I mean, even though South Africa won, the conditions were a bit difficult. And, I mean, throughout the tournament, Sharjah has relatively been low scoring. What are your thoughts on the conditions?
Yeah, Sharjah's been a bit strange. I mean, at one point, people thought there was going to be a lot of high scoring. They could see 200 versus 200 at Sharjah, but it's been much different in the World Cup. 140 has seemed defendable. Sri Lanka nearly did it against South Africa. It is a difficult one to read. I mean, obviously, once they get to the ground, they're going to have to assess it. Spin will be important, but South Africa have relied on spin a lot during this run that they've had leading up to the World Cup and during the tournament. The Brace Shamsi has been critical. Keshav Maharaj has been important. So is Aiden Markram's overs. It will be interesting to see, and you know, they've had this good run, but do you want to tinker with things a little bit and maybe give Bjorn Fortuin a go? But that's going to be very much dependent on conditions, and they're going to have to assess those very carefully when they get to the ground tomorrow.
Should we win the toss tomorrow, batting or bowling first?
Bavuma's preference seems to have been for batting second. You know, knowing about South Africa have this one advantage in knowing the outcome of the previous match between Australia and the West Indies, and that game is going to be very important in telling them what they're going to need to do in order to make the semi-finals themselves. So it's so hard to say without having looked at the surface, but given what Bavuma has done throughout the tournament, should South Africa win the toss, I can probably see them asking England to bat first.
I mean, you've been saying that England have been absolutely perfect. They have a strong side. But just looking at some of those individuals to stop the likes of Jos Buttler, who you mentioned earlier on, and the likes of Chris Jordan, how do we even stop them?
Look, Butler's been in extraordinary form in this tournament. But I go back to the IPL, I think it was last year, and he had a great battle with Anrich Nortje, actually, in one of the matches between Delhi and Rajasthan. And Nortje actually won that battle by bowling just full and fast. And I suspect that South Africa might go back to that plan tomorrow. Yeah. You know, Chris Jordan is a fabulous limited overs bowler. He's such an intelligent bowler, mixes up pace very well. He's also an outstanding fielder. Yeah, these are weapons that England have. They're such a strong side throughout, and they're so well drilled. They're so experienced. And, you know, South Africa would have been plotting for this for a long time, knowing that this match could very well be the game in which their fate in this tournament is going to be decided. So hopefully those plans are well thought through, and they're able to execute tomorrow, and that's the most important part.
And with Mills being ruled out of the rest of the tournament, do you think this might be, or this might work to our advantage as South Africa?
Well, I spoke earlier on about England's depth, and England's depth here is amazing, because Mills can go out, and in comes Mark Wood, who bowls at 145 kilometers an hour. Like I said, there's so few weaknesses in this England side, and when one guy goes out, another guy can just slot straight back in. So I don't think England are in any way, shape, or form weakened by the fact that Mills is no longer there.
And I know that you're very patriotic. You've been following the Proteas, so have I. But besides England, obviously them winning all 4 matches, any other team or country that perhaps has impressed you throughout this tournament thus far?
Pakistan. And I've been a big fan of Pakistan. We got to watch them earlier this year when they came out to South Africa. Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan are 2 outstanding batsmen at the top of the order. Shaheen Shah Afridi is a magnificent opening bowler. He's got an uncanny knack for taking a wicket in the first over every time he seems to bowl. Yeah, Pakistan are the other side, and of course this tournament has seen Asif Ali come to the fore with a couple of match-winning knocks, most notably against Afghanistan, when he just hit 4 sixes and ended the game right there and then within 7 balls. So Pakistan on the other side, they've played really well throughout the tournament. They've got a real they seem really motivated here to do something special. So they are obviously the other side, who I think can match England. And then, New Zealand are an interesting side as well. They don't have any superstar players in this particular format, but they're a very brainy side. And they sort of come to the fore at World Cups a lot. And I can see them causing a few hiccups along the way for other teams.
Well, Stuart, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. We're really hoping that the Proteas will do well tomorrow. Stuart Hess over there just chatting about that must-win match against England that is happening tomorrow, the Proteas versus England. Well,